Okay, let's jump right in. Welcome to an explainer that bridges ancient herbal wisdom with some seriously cutting-edge modern neuroscience. Today, we're looking at a potential weapon against progressive cognitive decline that might literally be sitting in your pantry right now. We're taking a rigorous, scientific look at rosemary therapy for Alzheimer's disease, moving step by step from the kitchen to the clinic to see what the data actually has to say. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the Alzheimer's challenge, look at rosemary beyond the kitchen, dive into the chemistry of neuroprotection, check out the evidence from the lab, explore clinical trials in aromatherapy, and finally wrap up with the main takeaway. All right, part 1, the Alzheimer's challenge. To put things into perspective, the World Health Organization estimates that over 55 million people worldwide are currently living with dementia. 55 million. And within that staggering number, Alzheimer's disease accounts for the vast majority, roughly 60 to 70% of those cases. It's a massive, escalating global health challenge driven by aging populations, and it places an immense burden on families and healthcare systems. So to fight it, we have to understand exactly what it is. Alzheimer's is a progressive neurodegenerative disorder characterized by a pretty devastating biological cascade. We're talking about extracellular amyloid-beta plaques building up, intracellular tau protein tangles forming, chronic neuroinflammation, and the progressive destruction of the brain's vital memory networks. The real problem is that current pharmaceuticals, like cholinesterase inhibitors, just offer temporary symptomatic relief. They don't actually halt the underlying disease progression. Because of this, researchers are desperately looking for safer, multi-targeted alternatives. Which brings us to part 2, rosemary beyond the kitchen. You know what's fascinating? History often leaves these little clues from modern science. Long before we had neuroimaging or molecular biology, ancient students in Greece and Rome were actually weaving rosemary into their hair or incorporating its sharp, piney scent into their study rituals. They truly believed it enhanced concentration and memory. And, as we're about to see in the modern data, they kind of hit the nail right on the head. Part 3, the chemistry of neuroprotection. To figure out why this works, we have to look at the multi-targeted arsenal hidden inside this plant. It shifts our whole view of rosemary from a simple kitchen spice to a complex phytopharmaceutical cocktail. First up, carnosic acid. This is a powerful antioxidant that actually inhibits that dangerous amyloid-beta aggregation we just talked about. Then there's rosmarinic acid, which can literally cross the blood-brain barrier to directly suppress neuroinflammation. And finally, 1,8-cineol, a key part of the essential oil that modulates neurotransmission and has been directly linked to acute cognitive enhancement. Unlike standard single-target drugs, rosemary wages a four-pronged war on Alzheimer's pathology. It fights oxidative stress by scavenging free radicals. It has potent anti-inflammatory effects by shutting down pro-inflammatory cytokines, which are basically the brain's alarm bells causing swelling. It's anti-amyloid-genogenic, meaning it reduces the formation of those destructive plaques. And finally, it provides cholinergic modulation. Now, that cholinergic modulation is absolutely crucial. Think of the destructive acetylcholinesterase enzyme like a giant Pac-Man just navigating the brain and eating up acetylcholine, which are your vital memory and learning signals. Rosemary compounds essentially act as a targeted lock-and-key shield. They block that Pac-Man enzyme from consuming the acetylcholine, perfectly preserving your cognitive function and synaptic plasticity. Moving on to part 4, evidence from the lab. The foundational proof here comes from extensive preclinical trials. Researchers take rat models with chemically induced memory deficits, basically mimicking Alzheimer's, and run them through cognitive tests like the Morris water maze. In these controlled environments, administering rosemary bioactives led to consistent, significant improvements in spatial learning and memory retention. Plus, biochemical analyses of these animal models showed massive reductions in oxidative stress and inflammatory markers. The brain tissue itself was actively protected. Part 5, clinical trials and aromatherapy. Of course, it's one thing to help a rat in a water maze. It's a whole different ballgame to provide tangible relief for a human patient. So does this actually work in humans? To answer that, we turn to human clinical trials, specifically looking at a breakthrough 2009 study by Jimbo and colleagues involving elderly patients with confirmed Alzheimer's disease. This study was so brilliantly designed. Instead of just giving patients a pill, they implemented a 28-day chronotherapeutic aromatherapy regimen. It perfectly highlights how sensory anchoring can be timed to address shifting daily symptoms. In the morning, patients were exposed to rosemary and lemon essential oils to boost alertness, personal orientation, and that crucial cholinergic tone. Then, at night, the protocol switched to lavender and orange essential oils to calm the nervous system, facilitate sleep, and reduce the agitation you so often see in late-stage dementia. And the results of this structured trial? Truly remarkable. After 28 days of rigorous cognitive evaluations using standardized tests, patients showed tangible, measured improvements in personal orientation and cognitive function. But here's the real kicker. 0 adverse side effects were observed. None. The patients improved entirely without the harsh gastrointestinal or neurological side effects that so frequently come with conventional Alzheimer's medications. And the clinical evidence extends way beyond just aromatherapy. Human trials looking at oral supplementation, like a 500 milligram dose of rosemary extract, have shown equally fascinating results. Oral consumption actually increases oxidized hemoglobin in the brain during cognitive tasks. Put simply, it increases cerebral blood flow. Delivering more vital oxygen to active neural tissues correlates directly with improvements in episodic memory and overall cognitive performance. Which brings us to part 6, the takeaway. So, what's the bottom line here? First, based on current data, rosemary clearly provides mild to moderate cognitive improvements. But, and this is absolutely vital, it has to be viewed as an adjuvant therapy. It's a supportive add-on, for sure not a miracle cure or a standalone replacement for a doctor's prescription. We also have to acknowledge the scientific reality. Current clinical evidence is incredibly promising, but it's limited by small sample sizes and short trial durations. The future of this research really demands large-scale, well-designed clinical trials and standardized dosages so we can properly harness this botanical power. Let's leave on this thought, though. The neuroprotective properties of rosemary are undeniable, but it begs a much larger question. If a common garden herb, literally something you might sprinkle on roasted potatoes tonight, holds such profound, multi-targeted neuroprotective power, what other natural therapeutic secrets are hiding in plain sight right in our kitchens? As we continue to battle the global Alzheimer's crisis, the answers to our most complex neurological challenges might just require us to look a little closer at the natural world around us. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.